Hey there friends, how's it going? Richard here. So excited to be with you. Hopefully you're doing well. So what are we doing today? We're actually going to supercharge this vehicle. Now why does this matter and why am I sharing this with you? Well, a couple of reasons. I'm at the time of filming this video, it's June 2022 and the world is enduring some pretty difficult challenges, particularly here in the United States. There's economic turmoil, inflation, things that I don't know about. I don't know in detail, but money is tight for a lot of people. And as a result of that, one of the things that have become increasingly popular are people looking to convert from a traditional gas-powered vehicle over to an electric vehicle. So I wanted to share what that experience is like, but particularly on a used vehicle. I'm driving right now my daily driver, Tesla, the 2020 Model 3 long range. At this time, it's probably got like 27,000 miles on it. So in the last year plus of ownership, about 15 months, I've put about 23,000 miles on this bad boy. Lots of daily driving, took a couple of road trips and whatnot. So it's been through its paces. So now about charging and the cost of it, a couple of things will really, one of the most popular questions that I still get from family, from friends who are interested or curious about learning more about what the experience is like driving an electric vehicle. Is it more cumbersome and whatnot? Two things stand out that will sort of control your experience with that or shape your experience with an electric vehicle. I think one of the first thing is going to be, what was the first thing? Oh, whether or not you have access to an outlet. So I live here in beautiful Astoria, Queens. Unfortunately, I live in an apartment building without access. I don't have parking. I don't have a driveway. I don't have access to an outlet on the street. At work as well, my office is a storefront building, but no driveway, no parking lot. So I don't have access to an outlet. If you do have access to an outlet, an electric vehicle life, not just Tesla, but any electric vehicle would be great because all you do is you just plug in and go. For myself, I think probably, I don't know, I could do the math, but on average, let's say anywhere between 20 to 30 miles a day on the lower end. On the higher end, probably something like 80 miles or so. If I have to go to deep in Long Island and back. So about 90 miles. And if you plug in overnight, and I think almost every electric vehicle is capable of doing this, you know, with this Tesla Model 3, the mobile connector, which at the time of this recording is no longer included in a vehicle purchase, with just a household outlet, you get about, I think it was 3 miles per hour, right? So again, if you drive about 20 miles, right, 3 miles per hour, that's 6 hours. If you plug in by the time you get home and just charge while you're sleeping, in the morning you'll be back to your stated preference. And if you get something heavier duty, like a heavy duty dryer, 220, 240 volt outlet, on this car anyways, with just the mobile charger, mobile connector, you get, I think it's like 30 miles per hour. So even better, like you can fully charge a car in like 3 hours. So having access to an outlet is really great. Plus the cost of charging decreases dramatically. When you use public chargers, Tesla superchargers, you're paying the most for it. There's a premium attached to it, but still, if you get, one of the big things that will determine your experience with an electric vehicle is whether or not you have access to an outlet at home. And make sure I don't get into an accident here. So that's the first thing. Second thing is going to be the kind of trips you take. Everyone, I think a lot of people are focused on how long will it take, how much does it cost, and I think that's really the mindset of road tripping as opposed to just your normal day-to-day activity. Because if you are someone who I have a friend of mine who purchased a Volkswagen ID4. He doesn't take road trips, right? He doesn't go travel long distances. He goes from his house in Long Island to his office, closings or whatnot, And that's his journey. He doesn't drive out, he doesn't go across states, he doesn't leave New York, maybe visit some family and friends, but his scope of driving is probably 40 miles at best, right? If you're somebody who does road trip, it's just a little more planning, right? You want to make sure that Tesla is great, that the supercharger network, you hop in your car, you punch in your destination, and it'll direct you to where it thinks the most efficient route is. You don't have to think about it. With some other EVs that are using third-party networks, you might want to check in advance to make sure those chargers are working, they're operational, what the cost is, where they're located, blah, blah. But that's it. I think those two things will really determine your experience with an electric vehicle. If you have access to an outlet, I envy you. That's the goal and the dream. And the second thing is going to be how you drive. If you're someone who just drives a couple miles each and every day versus someone who road trips, then charging whatnot maybe adds a little time to your trip. I mean, this car has been through. We drove it to the first long trip we took was to Washington D.C. Then we drove it from here in Astoria down to Savannah, and then our last road trip was from here all the way to Denver, Colorado, and back. And that was Steph, myself, and Uncle John. All right, so knowing that those things kind of determine your experience with an electric vehicle, why does the experience matter right now? Why am I really sharing this? Well, again, as I mentioned, this is the time of this recording, June 2022. Prices are high across the board. A lot of people, my dollars have been stretched really thin, and so people are looking for ways to save money, and I'm all for it. Gas prices are some, I don't know if all-time high, but really, really high. And knowing that, if you are looking to trade vehicles, update your vehicle, whatever the case is, you'd likely save money with an electric vehicle. I'm almost confident that the cost of even using public charging, right, like Tesla superchargers or some other network, even that is cheaper than paying for gas. I think I shared in my 1 year review that to drive, it was just like a smidgen less than 20,000 miles. We spent, I think it was about $2,000 for charging. I charge almost exclusively on superchargers. Yeah, on superchargers. There were two handfuls of times that I charged maybe at an Airbnb or a free public-facing charger, but for the most part, that I rely almost exclusively on supercharging. So knowing that that's the case, right? Gas prices we'll check out what the gas price at the supercharger station that we're at right now. It's a share. There's a gas station, also superchargers. See what the price is there, but I'd say floating around $5 a gallon is what you're looking at. And people are looking to switch to electric vehicle. One of the big other issues is that new vehicle inventory is very, very thin, especially with electric vehicles. Almost all electric vehicles, new electric vehicles, are sold out for the year. With Tesla, if you order a new vehicle, I think your expected time of delivery is into next year. The Ford Mustang Mach-E, they've stopped taking orders for the 2022 model. They haven't released a date when they'll start taking orders for the 2023. Volkswagen ID4, I've called around actually a couple of places. Nothing is in stock. You have to order, and then when it's produced, you'll deal with the dealer for delivery. So electric vehicles are hard. New electric vehicles are hard to find, but there are used electric vehicles available, whether it's Carvana, whether it's at a dealership and whatnot. And I think this vehicle is fairly representative of what you'd likely be getting. If you are in the market for an electric vehicle, you're probably getting something with 20, 30,000 miles, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, whatever. But some concerns that will often arise are, does the battery perform the same way? Almost didn't activate autopilot there, and just activated cruise control. The battery, and people want to know, how long does it take to charge? Does it slow down because it's an older vehicle, whatnot? So that's the reason I want to share with you how long it's going to take. we're heading to the supercharger now. It's going to take, okay, it looks like we'll be arriving with about 7% state of charge, which pretty good. I was hoping to, went to the gym this morning, whatnot, used a little more than I wanted to. I was hoping to get 10% to about 80%, and see what the time and cost of that is like, but 7%, all the better. Now, when it comes to time of charging and how long you have to stay at a charger, it's dependent on a number of variables. So I guess one of the most prominent ones is going to be the speed of the charger. Now, we're going to a Tesla supercharger that's their version 3. It reaches speeds of up to 250 kilowatts, but that's not a constant 250 kilowatts throughout the charging session. For most electric vehicles, what you have is something called the charging curve. And what that is, at the beginning, and it's depending on its state of charge, and especially at the beginning, it's going to go get its highest speeds, and then from there taper down. So with this Tesla, for instance, it usually aggressively jumps up to, or ramps up to really high speeds at low states of charge. It's like a roller coaster, right? Gets to the apex and then comes down. And then over time, it just like slowly trickles down until you get to about 80% or so. And at that point, for me, it's like, my metric is once it gets to, or it's a struggle to do 1% per minute, I'm out of there, because it's not worth I'd rather not stay there waiting for those last few percentages stay charging. At first when I got this vehicle, I was like, oh my god, I gotta make sure it's charged and blah blah. Now I realize just you'll charge when you have a chance, and usually what I do is I'll incorporate lunch or something like that with charging instead of having it be its own separate thing. So once a week or so, I won't make my own lunch. So I'll go to the supercharger, eat my salad or whatnot, and by the time I plug in, walk into the store, eat my order and eat my salad, by the time I'm out, I'm ready to go. So it doesn't really impact my life, and I get to step out of my office really. So getting back to the conditions or variables that affect charging, one, it's the charger speed itself. Okay, we're going to a Tesla version 3, up to 250, but again, it's not a constant 250. I call Tesla version 2 chargers, they still exist, and especially on Denver, I realized that a lot of the chargers on the interstate were version 2. They go up to max speeds about 125, 150 kilowatts, and then you have, for me, Tesla version 1, the urban, the ones that I've experienced, the urban superchargers, where their max output is 72 kilowatts, I want to say. So those are the three. So we're going to version 3, and as I think moving forward, Tesla is pretty much only deploying version 3 or whatnot. This car can take up to 250 kilowatts. Not every electric vehicle can do that though. So be sure if you're in the market for an electric vehicle that you understand the maximum input for the vehicle, what it can take, or what's its acceptance rate for charging. Because just because the charger has capacity of up to a certain number doesn't mean the car can. For instance, Electrify America, if you're not familiar with it, is one of the more popular third-party charging outfits. They were, I think, subsidized by like the Volkswagen Dieselgate scandal. So anyways, Electrify America is one of the larger ones. They put out a lot of the CCS, combined charging standard, that other or non-Tesla vehicles use, Ford Mustang, Volkswagen, Audi, and their newer stations go up to, I think it's 350 kilowatts. But for instance, let's say the Volkswagen ID4, which I was looking at, I think the max acceptance rate is 135 kilowatts. The Audi e-tron, I think the same thing, 150 kilowatts. The Ford Mustang, I don't know off the top of my head, so I don't want to misspeak, but you just want to keep that in mind as if you're looking for a used vehicle, you're in the market for one, that part of the analysis, like how fast can this battery be charged? It's not just the charger you're going to, but it's also the vehicle's acceptance rate. So charger speed, Battery temperature. So every battery, right, has its own chemistry, its composition, materials in there, its size, and for the manufacturers will tell you that there's like an optimal temperature for the battery to be at to charge most efficiently. And I forgot what it was for Tesla. I think it's like 77 degrees. I want to say something like that. Notwithstanding, Teslas are cool in that they come with a preconditioning feature. So if you enter in that you're heading to a supercharger, it'll precondition the battery so that hopefully by the time you get to the supercharged location that the battery's at the optimal temperature. Not every vehicle has that, but it's just a nice feature. So battery temp, the charger speed, and then also the charger usage, because the handles, my understanding of how a lot of these chargers, including the Tesla superchargers, work is that one of the reasons the speeds taper down is because the handle of the cable and the handle of the charging station overheats or gets a little too hot, so it pulls back so that it doesn't melt and blow up. So those are three of the big ones that determine how fast your car will charge, or the charging session. So you always want to keep that in mind. You want to know about what's the speed of the charger that you're going to, what's your vehicle's acceptance rate, what's the optimal temperature to have your car battery at. And also the fourth one, which is actually very important too, state of charge. Most of these vehicles will get out of autopilot because we're just about to hop on the Q Gardens interchange. If you have not driven through there, actually, let me take that back. I don't think anything's worse than the Jackie Robin Expressway, but second worst is the Q Gardens interchange, because you got the Jackie, you've got the Van Wyck, you got the Grand Central, all coming together, and there's never-ending construction. Okay. The state of charge. Most of these batteries tend to accept greater. So remember, we talked about the charging curve, right? So it starts, for most of these batteries, it starts off pretty high and then tapers down. Some vehicles, my understanding is like the Volkswagen 94, the Audi e-tron, they have pretty constant charging acceptance throughout the charge. But then it reaches, when they reach about 80% or so, it starts to taper down, 80-85%. Tesla, again, this vehicle, my experience has been, it jumps up, ramps up to like higher speeds, and then comes down. If you plug in at 50% though, you're already at a place where it's likely its max speed is already tapered. So you want to the extent that you can, head to a charger with your battery as low as possible. So in that case, in that way, you're not like crossing a threshold where the speed of your battery charging is already reduced, right? For instance, this vehicle, we're heading to a 250 kilowatt supercharger. If I plug, my experience has been you'll carry 250 up until I think like 15 or 20%, and then that's when it starts tapering down. If I plugged in at 40%, there's no way I'm getting 250 kilowatts. So that's what you want to keep in mind. If you can, plug in as low as possible. So those are the four things, I think off the top of my head, that really, really impact the length of your charging session. What's the speed of the charger you're heading to, and what's your vehicle's acceptance rate, the battery temperature, your state of charge, and then I forget the one. right, cool. We're checking in here at 4%. Let's get plugged in. All right, super cool. We're over here, just plugged in. Right away, ramped up to 104 kilowatts, 105. So let's see what we get this charging session. Can't really see the cost. Already spent 30 cents. 110. Let's see where does it start ramping up. Hopefully we get to like 200. Now, in all fairness, I suspect the battery isn't as warm as it needs to be. Instead of coming straight to the supercharger, I actually made a pit stop to my parents' house to stop in for something. Then I was at my office, and my office is not that far away from here. So I'm wondering if right now the battery isn't as warm as it needs to be. It's ramping up just a smidgen. It wants to go. 7%. Now you see it really kicking in. 180, 185. Let's go. Break 200. Break 200, baby. Let's see how high we go. 8%. Until we max out at 198. Oh no. Come on, you can do it. Push, battery. 200. All right. Not 250. So you see, just to let you know, even though the charger is capable of 250 kilowatts, and although the car battery pack is capable of achieving 250 as well, there are a lot of factors that determine what your charging session is looking like. Now this is previously set to, I'm going to set it to 80%. I don't need it to be that much. Oh, yeah. 80%, and as you can see, 25 minutes remaining. Alright, so we'll just sit here and see how far we get. Alright, so I pulled in with like 4%. And we spent now $4.50 to add 12%, 11%, 12%. As you can see, it's already tapering down. So that early part of the curve from about 5-7% until about 20% is gonna be likely gonna be your max. Again, this battery probably isn't warm enough. And this is also a heavy, high usage station. So I wonder, right now there are 1, 2, 3, 4. I just wonder how recent the last vehicle was here, how warm the handle is. This particular station, a lot of taxis, Tesla livery vehicles, taxi vehicles stop here. Oh wow, what just happened there? Alright, 30%, we're doing 168. Again, we didn't reach top speed, and I'm willing to attribute that to the battery not being warm enough. Now the spec that I'm really looking for is how deep in the pack I can carry over 100 kilowatts, right? Because that's the deeper in the pack you can go with over 100. I think 100 kilowatts is probably like the minimum speed I like to deal with. But the deeper in the pack I can go with 100 kilowatts, the happier I am. And I think the last time I checked, I think it was at 60%, and I was still around 100. It was, talking between 99 and 100 kilowatts. I'm curious where we're going to get with this, being that I didn't reach top speeds of 250. And for those of you wondering, the cost per kilowatt hour at this particular supercharger at this moment is 46 cents per kilowatt hour. Sweet. We just crossed the 50% threshold, 50% milestone. We're still doing 113, which is good. So I think we'll get to 60% above 100 kilowatts, which makes my heart flutter. Oh yeah, so getting back to something I suggested earlier, where I had 1% per minute is like I'm done with this. So as you can see, we're at 55% to get to 80%, so another 25%, but it's about 12 minutes remaining estimated, so it's about 2% per minute. I'll take it. All right, 60%. We're still pulling in 95. Nothing terrible. And I think if my battery had been warmer, that we might have carried the higher speeds a little longer, but not by much. All right, so we've got 62, 18%, 9 minutes. So we're still 2 to 1. Remaining for that 16%, 15%. So as you can see, we're creeping under that 2% per minute. Alright, we've got 5 minutes remaining, pulling in 77 kilowatts here at 71%. And again, on normal circumstances, I've been in this car the entire time just recording. But generally speaking, what I would have done is, as soon as I got in, plug the car, walk over to go get, maybe use the bathroom, get something to eat, whatever, hang out for a little bit. And then by the time I get back, we're at the 80%. As you can see, just got the notification from Tesla's. I have feelings maybe if I stay past it, 80%. The way to change that is simply slide your limit above it, but otherwise, if you don't change the max, if you're charging capacity, let's say you go have dinner somewhere and you don't want to deal with that, then maybe you slide up to 100%, so you avoid that. Just dipping under 7 kilowatts. And as you can see, it starts to get to a point where the utility of staying around to charge more decreases significantly, and so it's probably just better to, especially for road tripping, you probably just want to unplug and then the destination. You want to take, especially road tripping. That's what I learned driving 3,500 miles back and forth to and from Denver, Colorado, is that you want to take advantage of those high speeds, or the highest speeds possible, that charging curve, right? Rather than these slow speeds where you start waiting like 1% per minute, because that's where we're at right now, right? We're waiting 5% for 3 minutes. Now, some people watching this may be asking themselves, well, how long does it take
to get to 100%. I think when I've done it once or twice, especially when I first got this car, it's about an hour, you can say. I think for most vehicles, actually let me take that back. I don't want to say for most vehicles, but when I first got this car, I charged to 100% because I didn't know any better. And yeah, it's about an hour. I think if you, no matter, it's almost funny, like no matter which charger you use. I think the 72 kilowatt urban charger, I think it's like an hour and 5 minutes or something like that. But for most people, day-to-day driving, especially like this, without worrying about road tripping and whatnot, 80%. Tesla even recommends just charge up to 80% for daily driving, to extend battery life and improve efficiency. So we're just doing 0 to 80. If you, as you can see, we're down to 58 kilowatts at just hitting 80%. If you stay charging here, that's going to trickle down, down to like 20 kilowatts, right, at some point, to get to 100%, which that would add, if you want to see something real quick, if I extend to 100%, added 25 minutes, right? So for that last 20%, it's 25 minutes. So you're spending more than a minute per whatever, minute and a half per whatever. All right, so now we're gonna say our was 80%. No, charge limit is it's gonna give me idle fees. Yeah. Okay, all right, so we're done. Stop playing around. You see, we spent $27.12, right? We're at 80%. Unlock charge port, so let's go unlock. Okay. Oh yes, the ease with which unplug, get out. Cool. Done.
So there you have it. If you're someone who's in the market for an electric vehicle, I just want to see what gas prices are right now. So there you have it. It's about, what do we come in at? 11:10 maybe, leaving at 11:44. I dabbled a little bit. About half an hour cost in usable electricity. I know a lot of analyses are to 100%, but for most people and most daily driving, you won't be charging to 100%. It's unnecessary, and I think at least to most manufacturers, maybe not the newer batteries, I think the lithium batteries you can charge to 100% without any issue, or maybe charge from mid-pack. Either way, like, it's unnecessary to charge to 100%, especially if you're someone who's relying on public, like superchargers or other public-facing chargers. It's just unnecessary. You got to balance it. It is extra time, right? Whereas if I decided to fuel up here with gasoline, it's 5 minutes, right, to fill up a tank of gas. But this is certainly, just the act of charging alone is significantly more. And so as the speed tapers down, there comes a point where I say to myself, listen, how much do I need for the week, and how much time am I willing to spend here? To get to 80%, right, it would have taken another 25 minutes to get that extra 20%. Not worth it. Again, there's also battery concerns as well. $27, and pretty good for the foreseeable next 3-4 days or so. It depends on what I have going on drive-wise or so. But if it's just to here, my office and back, and nothing much, this is probably enough for the rest of the week. So $27 for that. And again, half hour spent. It wasn't the best charging session because I think the temperature of the battery wasn't where it was supposed to be. If I had come directly here from my apartment this morning, instead of stopping at my parents' house for a little bit, then I went to my office for a quick stop, and then here with the battery cooling down, both of those opportunities, I don't think the battery was at its optimum temperature. So something to consider. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you are looking for an electric vehicle, there's so much fun to drive. But yeah, it's right now in 27 bucks, whereas here, you know, you saw gas at that station was $5.60 a gallon. I'm approaching another gas station here. It looks like regular cash is $4.89, and then ultimate cash, regular credit is $5.19. Let's go cash first. Cash, regular is $4.89, ultimate $5.99, and silver $5.89. Whereas if you use credit, regular is $5.19, ultimate $6.29, and silver $6.19. I'm good with my 27 bucks to get me around for the week, whatever it is. So hopefully, you know, there's a lot of considerations, especially the things we talked about before, how long the charging session and how convenient it is. The convenience really boils down to whether or not you have access to an outlet and what kind of driving you really do. If it's short trips day to day, or if you actually do long road tripping, there are different habits. But if you don't do road trips that often, even if you do or don't do road trips that often, when you do it, you'll be fine. And then, you know, for the actual charging session, battery temp, what kind of charger you've got, what do you say? Charging speed, the car's acceptance rate, the battery temperature, the charge handle, and I forget. There's probably one or two more things I'm forgetting. Anyways, time to get back to work. Enough play. Whoa! This is where that instant torque comes in very handy. It just zooms right along. Got to get back to work. If you found this enjoyable, I really would appreciate it if you dropped a comment, share your thoughts. That'd be awesome. Be happy to share some more, or if you have any questions about what we did here. Again, if you're on the market for a used car, particularly used Tesla, this is a 2020 Model 3 long range, your charging curve would probably look something comparable to that. Pretty good speeds all throughout. You get to about 60%. I'm still pulling 100 kilowatts, which is magnifique. All right, with that, y'all, take care, be well. Bye for now.